As I mentioned in the introductory video, we're absolutely thrilled and delighted to be releasing the VRSI indicator, which we've now developed for a new platform, and that is for both MT4 and MT5. And in this video, we're going to take a closer look at the VRSI on MT4. And if you've watched the introductory video, I explained the three principal elements of the indicator. It is, as I explained in that video, a very intuitive indicator, but just to remind you, those three elements are, first of all, we look at the fulcrum in the center, in other words, the midpoint level, whether we are in bullish or bearish territory. Secondly, we look at the height of the bars of the indicator, which signal strength. And thirdly, we look at the color combinations, and we're looking at essentially brighter colors for increasing strength, and where we have a darkening of that color, then we have diminishing strength. And in this video, I've taken a very simple example. This is for the Nasdaq 100, just one time frame. And really just to highlight those various components of the VRSI. And remember, this is volume relative strength. And we talk about pressure because when a trend is developing and developing strongly, what we want to see is rising pressure with that trend. In other words, an increase in pressure, a little bit like a boiler, if you like, a steam boiler, where the pressure is building. And that's essentially what we want to see in any trend, whether it is to the upside or whether it is to the downside. And in this example, we see various elements of trend and their strength. Over on the left-hand side, as you can see, the trend there was relatively weak, and it was relatively weak to both sides, both the upside and the downside. We certainly had a move or attempts to move to the downside, but the height of those pressure bars was very muted. They do change color clearly, and we move below the fulcrum line. But nevertheless, if you note the height of those pressure bars, they are very weak. The blue and the lighter blue. And the same applies to the pressure bars to the bullish side of the equation, where we saw this trend developing. The angle of inclination of the trend was very weak, in other words, about 20 degrees or so. So that in itself gives us some indication that this trend is not strong, but that is also indicated by the height of the VRSI bars as well. They change color to indicate that we have got bullish sentiment here, but nevertheless, the height of those bars signals to us that this strength in this trend is relatively weak. It's modest. Then we move to more towards the center of the chart, and we get this much stronger trend developing. And this is what I mean, and this is what demonstrates really the initial strength of the trend as we break away from that earlier price action where we had seen certainly bullish sentiment, but not in any great strength. Then, as we move towards the center of this chart, we see that strength really demonstrated very clearly with the rising bars, the rising yellow bars, and also full yellow color as well. Then that starts to diminish a little bit. But what's important about this trend is that it never breaks below the fulcrum line. In other words, the bullish momentum, the bullish strength, albeit it has weakened, is maintained above the fulcrum line. And it really helps us to stay in this trend, which then picks up the bullish strength once more. The pressure builds again. We see much taller bars coming into the equation. And then as we get to the end of that and the flattening off, we see the height of those bars falling away. And we start to see a little bit of a pickup in bearish momentum as those bars towards the right-hand side of the chart begin to move below the fulcrum line. But again, in exactly the same way as we saw on the left of the chart, they're really not demonstrating strength in that momentum. There's no pressure in that momentum to the downside at that point. We oscillate back and forward for a little bit further, and then it is only in that last 7, 8, 9 bars that we see pressure increasing, and we see that demonstrated very clearly with strong blue colors to our pressure bars, our VRSI bars, increasing in height, dramatically increasing in height, and that is also maintained as we move to the conclusion of this chart. So it's really giving us a very strong sense that we have a strong move here, lots of pressure coming into that downward movement, indicated both by the height of the bars and also by their color. So I just wanted to really examine the indicator in more detail just on one simple chart. We're not looking at multiple time frames here, which is obviously a key element, which we'll look at in future examples, but really just to highlight the key components of how you use the VRSI indicator in an intraday perspective. But this could be on any chart from the fastest to the slowest. The principles, as they are indeed for volume price analysis itself, which is complementary to this. Remember, the VRSI indicator is very much a complementary indicator to our underlying methodology, which is volume price analysis, whereby we are looking at the price in relation to the volume and interpreting accordingly. But the beauty of the VRSI indicator alongside that is that in a very similar way, we look at the same things. We are looking at height. We are looking at relationships of height. We are looking at increasing height or decreasing height. So it's very, very complementary in that way. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Lots more to come in the series. So thanks for watching. See you soon and bye for now.